Can you talk about the founding of the Abbey, how this happened and why?
Okay. I was among the first generation of Westerners to ordain in the Tibetan tradition, and the Tibetans are a refugee population, at least our teachers are, because it's so difficult to go into Tibet and study there. And so there were not facilities for us in Asia to stay in, and there's not facilities in the West. And our Tibetan teachers are very concerned about reestablishing their own Tibetan monasteries in exile. So we Western monastics were kind of left to fend for ourselves. And so there weren't monasteries for us to stay in. There wasn't financial support. It was really quite difficult. You know, I ordained in 1977, so it was a long time ago, and it was really very challenging. And so I feel that community life is very important for our own personal practice. The Buddha established a community, and living in community really helps you with your Dharma practice, applying the teachings. So I just said, well, somebody's going to have to start a monastery. Might as well be me. And so I think a monastery is important, first of all, so that the monastics have a place to practice, but second of all, for the benefit of the Buddha Dharma, because historically it's been the monastic community that has held the teachings and passed them on to a future generation. Now, you might say, well, why is that necessary? There's so many lay practitioners, especially in the West. There's many excellent lay practitioners. Even in Asia there are. Why do we need monastics nowadays? Well, again, if there's a monastery, you have a physical place where people know that Dharma is being practiced. And I've had many people tell me that just knowing that we're here helps their mind, because they know that there's a place where they can go to be with people who are practicing or trying to practice full-time, okay? They know that there's a physical place where there's a repository for scriptures, where there's going to be retreats, where there's the community that's living the Dharma. So that, the physical place is very important, where the people live, not just a center where people come from time to time, but a community that's actually living it. And then second of all, for people to have that example of people who are outside the mainstream middle-class America, because the Buddha emphasized renunciation so much, you know, and of course it's the mind that is renunciation, because you can abandon your physical things but still have a mind that's very attached. But let's face it, at our basic level, most of us, when we're with the objects of attachment, we indulge. And so having people who are really trying to live a simple lifestyle, who, you know, we don't have you know, a personal house or a personal car or personal computers or whatever, you know, and we have the precepts that limit what we can have, where we can go, what we can do. So it really makes you deal with your mind in a very special way that's different than the way a lay teacher, people who are really practicing non-attachment, you know, who don't have a family, who don't have a career and a job, who don't get paid, but who work very hard, okay? And so I think showing that example of that lifestyle is very, very important, because I think really practicing Buddhist teaching has got to have an effect on our lifestyle, yeah? I mean, because it affects the mind, so it's going to affect how we live in the world. Okay, so I think monasteries are quite important to really hold the teachings and pass the teachings on to future generations, and to be places where everybody can come, but where people who really want to devote their lives to practice have a supportive environment. because out in the middle of the city, it's very difficult, you know? I mean, that's why I ordained, because I knew if I continued working at my job and in my marriage and with my flat and all the possessions, you know, there's no time to practice. Yeah, if I had a family, I couldn't go around and teach different places.
So are you saying that for Buddhism to really take root in America,
It needs the monastic aspect.
Yes. Yes, I think the monastic aspect is very important. I think we need many different lifestyles. We need many different Buddhist traditions, because one thing is not suitable for everybody, but we have to make sure that we include everything. And I think the monastic element is crucially important, because we have to remember that our teacher, Lord Buddha, was a monastic. And if we forget that, then we're losing something about the Buddha's own example of how to live and practice.